Thomas Partey's situation, which is still uncertain. There are reports that he is now in talks, or his camper in talks with Barcelona over a free transfer. And I read in the report that the contract talks with Arsenal, they've been described as slow moving. There's not a lot of progress being made. From what you know, is that accurate?
Yeah, I mean, Arsenal have offered him a contract now, which has come fairly recently. That offer, but it hasn't been accepted. And from my understanding, the most likely scenario still is that there will be an agreement reached because both sides are coming at it from wanting to stay. Arsenal would prefer him to stay, and Party would prefer to stay in London. But again, it's a complicated deal because Arsenal are trying to reduce his wages. Partey doesn't want to reduce his wages. It's his last big contract and all that sort of stuff. And he has got interest from the likes of Barcelona, Atletico Madrid, Juventus, top clubs in Europe, Saudi Arabia as well. So it is quite a hard one to get done. I don't know how long it's going to go on for, but again, just my information on it is the most likely scenario is that he stays. But the longer it goes on, other clubs are absolutely free to speak to him. He's free to speak to them, and if Arsenal can't come to an agreement, then you know he'll have to move on. So yeah, it's relatively slow moving, but I don't think we'll have to wait too long. One way or the other, a decision will be made fairly quickly because that's just the nature of the beast when it comes to this sort of situation. So we'll have to wait and see on it. But I still think now I'm leaning more towards that he stays, but anything can still happen.
Yeah, it's a really tricky one with Partey because Jorginho has left. He's going to Flamengo. Arsenal are bringing in Martin Zubimendi, but even then, if you lose Jorginho and Partey, bring in Zubimendi, you are still weaker in that number
Mm.
six position. So if it comes to, say, Arsenal having to keep him on the same wages just so they avoid losing both number sixes in the same summer, in your eyes, would they have to relent and say, okay, we'll keep you on the same money if he's just flat out refusing to accept a lower pay packet?
Oh, I don't know. It's tough, isn't it?
Mm.
Can you really do that for a 32-year-old now? I think it is with the sort of injury record that he had, and I know his injury record was great last season, which was good. It's a tough one because you do have to if Partey goes, you'd have to go and sign another midfielder. You can't lose Jorginho and Partey and then only bring in Zubimendi. So probably the wages you'd spend, would that be as much as probably the transfer fee you'd have to spend on bringing in a replacement? Potentially not. So you'd have to consider all those sort of things. Also, I think the contract they're looking at is potentially a 1 year plus one with an option. Maybe you can come to some sort of agreement in the end where the first year you pay good wages, the second year potentially if you trigger that option the wages reduce a little bit. Could that be a way of finding an agreement as well? So there's all that sort of thing that needs to be discussed. But yeah, the fact that Jorginho is going in the same summer, I think makes it doubly important for Arsenal. I think that's why we're seeing them actually change their mind really and push for Partey to stay. Whereas a few months ago, I think the general consensus was this was probably going to be his last season in an Arsenal shirt.
Yeah, you just perfectly answered my next question there, actually. I was going to say if Arsenal do lose Partey and Jorginho, but only bring in Zubimendi, do they need, can they get by with the options they have? Because obviously we would expect that Zubimendi would be the main number six next season, even if Partey does stay. But then the
Yeah.
alternatives we're looking at, maybe dropping Declan Rice back, which isn't ideal. I mean, we've not seen much of Lewis Skelly in midfield. Ben White even dabbled there for Brighton. I mean, so Arsenal, in your eyes, they can't get by with those set of options if Partey and Jorginho go. They need to sign somebody else in that scenario.
I think you have to. There are options, like you said. Declan Rice is probably the first one, but like you said, Lewis Skelly's another potential option there. But I just think you're taking a big gamble if you're doing that. And we've seen last season the gambles Arsenal took backfired spectacularly. I don't think you can allow yourself to be put in the same position again. I think you take so much out of your game as well if Declan Rice is playing constantly at six all the time. When he first arrived, I thought he would be Arsenal six, but he's so good in that left eight role, and I think he's growing season by season as well. I'm really looking forward to seeing Declan Rice take his game to another level next season in that eight role, the goals and the assists and everything that he's going to bring to the team. And if Partey has one of his seasons where he gets a lot of injuries, which could easily happen, then suddenly you're taking Declan Rice and playing him as number six for long periods, and how much is that impacting you in an attacking sense? So I just don't think you can put yourselves in that position. You've got to protect yourselves. So if he went, they'd have to sign a replacement, I think.
Yeah, I've actually just had a brainwave and remembered that Albert Sambi Lokonga exists. I mean, obviously he's not
Mm.
set the world alight at Arsenal. He had that good brief period, I think, in the 21-22 season where he was starting quite regularly, but then just sort of dropped off after that. He's coming back from a what I think has been quite an underwhelming loan at Sevilla. So, I mean, would you give him a shot next season, or as an exit, you think is the best thing for him?
I think an exit. They'll try and get a deal done for him. He wants to move on and play regularly. They did take up the clause in his contract because he would have been out of contract this summer, but they added an extra 12 months, and I think that's just purely to try and get a deal done for him this summer and make some money back. He's not a six anyway. He likes to go forward a little bit more than playing as a six. Sees himself as an eight. I think I was reading, did a good interview with Simon Collins in the Standard last week, and he was saying he was even playing as a false nine at times for Sevilla. So I certainly wouldn't want him at the base of the midfield for me. So no, I think he's like most of the Arsenal loanees last season. The sort of exit door is looming for him.
Well, if he's that false nine, could it be Arsenal's new striker, Albert Sambi Lokonga?
Had enough of midfielders playing as my striker. Thank you very much.